Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After running through the news you need to know about, we're going to do the thing where we answer fans questions. Tons of stuff to talk about on today's show. Obviously, the bye week could not come at a better time. I can't remember the last time the Dolphins went into a bye week this hot. I think it's been 20 years since, over 20 years, or maybe 20 years. 22 years maybe. Since the Dolphins were last 7-3, which is pretty remarkable. But it is amazing that we finished as strong as we did going into the bye week. Obviously, we're hoping for a lot of players coming off injuries, especially Byron Jones. We still have not heard any news on Byron Jones, but hopefully he can come back because it would be a great first week for him, not only to get the bye week under his belt, to get a practice week under his belt, but the Texans would be a nice game for him to come back to kind of get his feet wet, to kind of get him going again. Because I think if Byron comes back, the defense really could go to another level, and the team itself obviously would go to a whole another level. And you want to talk about just a phenomenal team. It would help the defense out a lot. So hopefully that happens. We haven't, again, as we get into the news you need to know about, no Byron Jones news yet, but it would be really nice if he came back after the bye. But anyway, this first news story comes from Pro Football Rumors. Dolphins defensive end Emmanuel Ogbah is out for the rest of the season with a torn tricep muscle, which sucks. Obviously, he was dealing with a ton of injuries early in the year. He was having a pretty good season, especially against the run, and obviously he's a fantastic rotational player to have on your team. Obviously, he's an above-average NFL starter. He just signed the contract this offseason. And he helps the team not only have a deadly rotation, but, like I said, he's a great run defender, and he sets the edge. And his presence will be missed greatly. And not only that, but Emmanuel was a really nice, versatile player. You can move him inside or out. Especially on some of those third down pass rush packages, you could have virtually everybody out there at the same time on the field, and I think we saw a little bit of that. Even after Emmanuel got hurt, we saw Jalen, Melvin, and Bradley be on the on the field at the same time, and you can do some of that with Emmanuel too, and that's really difficult to stop. You talk about someone's going to get a favorable matchup, and they're all great pass rushers, so it definitely loses a little bit of bite to the pass rush. In the run defense, it gets hit a little bit too as well. It's a big loss. I will say that it is nice that the Dolphins got Bradley Chubb. I think his role will expand, obviously. It'll have to. And I think that's a good thing to kind of... Obviously, he got a ton of snaps against Cleveland, and he looked fantastic against Cleveland. I thought he looked great against Chicago as well. But he kept that up with his first NFL sack as a Dolphin against a really good Cleveland offensive line. And the Cleveland respected the pass rush. They kept a lot of max protections to try to take away our four-man rush. And a lot of the time, even if we were standing 4 or 5, it still got there. We had a ton of quarterback hits that game. So I think even though Emmanuel is a great player and will be missed, I do think they have other players on the team that can definitely step up and will be just fine. Melvin, Bradley, and Jalen, all three are great run defenders. And obviously all three are really great third down pass rushers as well. So I think that they can hold the fort down. The Dolphins still, I do believe, have Trey Flowers on the team. We haven't seen him in a while, but we'll see who they end up maybe throwing in the rotation a little bit. I think it just, honestly, they already have a great rotation. I just think like Bradley's role will expand. They still have Van Ginkel on the team. So the rotation is still there. They're still going to be fresh in the third and fourth quarter. That's still still obviously very viable. So it's great that they have so much depth there. But anytime he was a good player, it's not great. I think that's it. All the news you need to know about. And again, the bye week could not have come at a better time. Obviously, Keon Crossan was dealing with injuries in that game. Teron Armstead almost didn't play with the toe injury. He's obviously also dealing with the Achilles issues that he's had. That's why he hasn't been able to practice as much. Xavier Howard, he's dealt with some Achilles stuff, I believe. Or groin, not Achilles, for Xavier. So again, the bye week could not have come at a better time. And it is very impressive as the garbage truck people come. It's very impressive that what the Dolphins did to go into the bye week. And yeah, that is all the news you need to know about. Hopefully the Dolphins will get healthy after the bye week, and we can continue this strong season. And again, I want to say that, and I think everybody understands this, but it's true that Byron Jones people forget how great of a player he was. Honestly, last year I thought he had a better season than X did. And he's a great player. Like, he's a fantastic player. You're talking about a corner that runs 4.3, who's 6'1", and was a Pro Bowler. So getting him back would be so big. I hope he comes back. So let's get into the news not the news you need to know about, the game. As we finish up the news you need to know about, the Dolphins win 39-17 over the Cleveland Browns. One of the things I want to bring up before we even get into this is that shout out to Mike and his message throughout the week. I thought if you guys were keeping up with the press conferences, I thought it was really cool that even though the Cleveland Browns record wasn't great at 3-5, they're still a really talented football team. Their coaching isn't bad at all, and to keep them focused, because in previous seasons, and some of the more infamous win streaks that the Dolphins have had, like in 2013, and even years beyond that, they would always lose against teams that they're, I guess you could say, better than, or have a letdown game. And this team has just kept the consistency, which is the sign of greatness, obviously, is can you consistently do it? And they have done that all year, and that's the sign of a great team, and they are a great team. It's the first one we've had in many years. So I thought that was really cool. Mike has proven not just to be a great play caller, but also just a great leader and a head coach, getting everybody's mindset ready. It really felt like we were playing a team that had like 10 more wins than us throughout the week. That's how he was kind of going into that game with that mentality, and I thought it showed on the field. We completely outplayed them the entire time. We did not come out slow. We did not punch down to our competition. We came in ready to go, and I think I don't think you'll see that this team do that throughout the entire season. There's a lot of young players on this team, and even Coach Mike McDaniel does a great job of getting people ready, but they're hungry. They're a hungry young team, and I think you see that on the field. So let's start with the offensive side of the football, and I want to start with the offensive line, because obviously as the year has gone on, they've been running the football better, and it's still some of the same run plays, but we're just executing them better. I want to shout out to Brandon Shell, who I think you cannot pull out of the lineup. He continues to impress me every week. He's just a good veteran player, and he's come in and played really good football for us. And this tackle duo has been great since he's gotten to the lineup. He's done a fantastic job. So Brandon Shell, I don't think you can take him out for Austin Jackson. I think you kind of have to keep that same lineup there, because they're just too good. So, I mean, in this game, Jeff Wilson, it's weird that this says Jeffrey Wilson on the stat line. Jeff Wilson, 17 carries, 119 yards, 7 yards a carry. Raheem Mostert, 8 yards a carry on 8 carries for 65 yards, and obviously that touchdown. And obviously Jeff had that awesome touchdown where he shook, I believe it was the safety out of his shoes, and then went up the sideline for a touchdown. Like, Jeff has legit talent that I think people don't really take it. Like, he's a playmaker. He's not just a good running back. He makes plays, and you saw that in this game as well. But back to Brandon Shell, like, he's playing really good football. I don't think he's being talked about enough as kind of like a sleeper great piece that the Dolphins have added, and he's continued to play very good football. So something that I noticed in all of these games since he's been playing and starting. What else? I think the biggest headline for the offense in this game, not only is Tua an MVP candidate and playing great football, the best quarterback play we've seen since Dan Marino, but he was able to do it without Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I mean, and shout out to Trent Sherfield, who obviously should be a headline of this game for becoming a real factor in some of these games. He's made big plays in all three of these games going into the bye week, and he made a lot of big plays in this game as well. But I think the big topic of discussion, or not the big topic, but the big headline for this game is Tua was able to have a really good game without Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill being the vocal point of the offense, and throwing the ball all over the yard to different players. And I think that's the biggest headline of the day. And, the more I think about it, the more, and I've been on the side of if there was an MVP candidate, it should be Tyreek Hill because his numbers are so ridiculous. And his numbers are still ridiculous, but I think Tua is more valuable to the team. Obviously, he is because he plays the most important position in sports. But he's playing such good football. And even the coaches, I think, have elevated even what they think of him. You hear Wes Welker talking about he's coaching the receivers to always be ready because Tua sees the field so well that you don't know who is going to get the ball on any given down. And I think that's the hardest thing in football, especially as a pocket passer, to unlock, is just to see everything all the time. And that's, I think, the biggest leap for a lot of quarterbacks to be a great quarterback. I think that's the biggest leap, especially if you're not especially if you're not athletically gifted, like a Lamar Jackson or Justin Fields. When you unlock that part of the game, everything else will come easy to you, and it's just great to see Tua do that. And certainly the coaches have noticed that. Shout out to Darrell Bevell, who's done a great job with him throughout the season. Obviously has a huge, very, very esteemed pedigree throughout his coaching career. And he's done a great job with Tua. And again, I can't say enough about Mike McDaniel. He hasn't been overhyped. He's lived up to the hype. He's been the best coach we've had in over 20 years here. He's a great head coach, and he's a great play caller. And I think those two things are different, and I think he's great at both. And it's just great to see everything. And I'm just really excited about the team, really excited about where it's going. To add another playmaker like Jeff Wilson is huge. I really think he's even underrated in the game that he had in Sunday. I think people are like, oh, he's serviceable. He's just hitting the holes because he actually has talent. I mean, he was starting for San Francisco, and not only was he starting, but he was putting up good numbers as a starting running back, and he has a lot of talent. He's a playmaker. He's not just a serviceable running back. So to add another playmaker like him, and another thing that he's been great at is the receiving game. He's actually been pretty good in the receiving game since he obviously was scoring the receiving touchdown, back-to-back weeks with a touchdown for the Dolphins. So adding him was great as well. Chris Greer has done a great job with this team. And, the more I thought about it, the more I was like, man, I feel like a lot of our players are getting slighted. And I think if we finish the season strong, I think that'll be flipped on its head. I think Tua will... I'm not even really worried about Tua. I don't really understand the hate towards him. It's very ignorant. A lot of the times you hear some of the criticisms towards his play. It's like, I don't even know if... clearly you don't watch the games. And I'm not just saying that as a Dolphins fan. I think that's a pretty rational statement that's not biased. And I also think that Chris Greer is not getting enough love. Obviously, High Roseman up in Philadelphia, he's getting a lot of the attention, but I don't think Chris is not getting enough attention for what he's done with this team, especially at the trade deadline. I think that's another underrated thing about this whole thing. And then Mike McDaniel for Coach of the Year. I understand Nick Sirianni he's 8-1, but I don't think... I think Mike McDaniel's impact is very underrated. Obviously, Kevin O'Connell for Minnesota, for some reason, even gets more love than Mike does. It's very strange. They like to talk about the different feel that he's brought down there for Minnesota. I think Mike has done the same thing for this team. People forget it. Brian Flores, the dark, storm cloud that was over this franchise, that was a grump the entire time, and that's really seems to be like what everybody is that comes out of New England is kind of a stormy cloud, dark stormy cloud that rains all the time and thunders and there's never any sunshine, there's never any fun, it's always hard work all the time. And that seems to have failed each coach that has come out of that coaching tree. And I just don't think that's being talked about enough. That just the atmosphere that Mike has brought to the franchise. So I don't know. It's very frustrating that those three guys aren't getting, I think, enough credit for what they've done. And again, we're only, I would say, let's say at the halfway point. If they finish strong, I really do feel like a lot of this is going to be flipped on its head. I mean, imagine if Tua wins the MVP. I think I'm definitely going to get emotional. I think it would just be insane. Going from where we were last year to this year is such a drastic change. And like I said, I don't think those two are getting enough credit for, those three are getting enough credit for being the biggest parts of that change. The fact that I'm even sitting here talking about Tua legitimately could win the MVP of the NFL, where the Dolphins have been trying to find a quarterback for over 20 years, and they finally found him. Like it is pretty remarkable. And like I said, I've said this in the previous podcast. Like every week, it's hard to be as a Dolphins fan. It's almost like it's not real a lot of the times. It is very like I said, it's crazy. It really is when you start thinking about it. But yeah. Anyway, the stuff I have to say on the defense. The things that I noticed in this game, I thought the pass rush was clearly that was something that Josh was beating into their heads all week, was that we're not playing up to what we need to, and I think some of that's been the lack of disguise sometimes. Like anytime, really the only disguise, and again, I don't want to get on this way because we won this game. But clearly, they were getting onto the front seven to do a better job, and especially on third down and pass rush. And I thought they did that in this game. And the Browns respected it. Like I said, a lot of max protection. The run defense was fantastic. Shout out to Christian Wilkins, who's having a phenomenal season. I've seen some people talk about Quinnen Williams. I've seen some people even say that he's one of the best players on defense in the NFL. I don't. To me, and I don't know what Quinnen Williams' numbers are. I would have to actually let me look this up. But I just feel like Christian Wilkins is having a phenomenal season. Like he really is. Like this game was. He had one tackle on one. He got into the backfield, hit Nick Chubb for a loss. He's constantly involved in the run game all the time, and he was great in pass rush in this game as well. I don't understand. Is Quinnen Williams? I just want to look at his stats. What are his sack numbers? I know he's not. He's having a good season. 7 sacks this year. Does he have 7 sacks this year? Sorry, guys. I guess he does. I did not know Quinnen Williams had 7 sacks. Well, I guess I don't know. I would have to watch him more, to kind of to see if defensive player of the year. But yeah, I didn't know his numbers were that great, especially for an interior defensive lineman. But yeah, I just feel like Christian Wilkins not getting Christian Wilkins not getting enough credit for the year that he's had. Though a lot of people are focused on the offense, but he's having a fantastic season. So yeah, I thought the front seven, especially in pass rush, was fantastic. I still do think it would be nice. Kader Kohu, again, that's another player I forgot to mention. He's playing great football. I still, and especially over the bye week, it would be nice if we added some different coverages to the game plan just to disguise the opposing team more. We definitely played a lot more zone in this game. but it was still, for the most part, and I would have to go back and look, it was still, for the most part, from what I remember, single high safety. I think we did do some two deep safety looks sometimes, but we should definitely be in that more, because we force teams into a lot of third and longs, like a lot of them, because we have had a really good run defense. We need to play two deep looks. I still feel like we still need to do that more, even if it is man coverage. I feel like we just don't do that enough. It's too much single high safety, and it would be nice to throw maybe some quarters in there or something like that to at least attempt to confuse people on third down. Because like I said, really where Josh's confusion comes from is the blitz look, like who's dropping, who's coming, and you can't do that all the time. And especially with a great front seven, it would be nice if we kind of mix some things in there. But yeah, Kader Kohu, Jalen Phillips, Melvin Ingram, who's having a fantastic season. I feel like the defense isn't. I've heard a lot of people say, this defense is going to be is the Achilles heel of the Dolphins. That's not true. If Byron Jones comes back, this defense can be really good, like really, really good. And again, I hope in the bye week, Josh looks at like, okay, we're getting a lot of teams into 3rd and 8. And 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 10s. Even in this game, they converted a 3rd and 12 early on in this game, which was an insane throw and honestly was lucky. We kind of collided, and it is what it is. But in those situations, you have them where you want them. Mix the coverages up on the back end. Let the rush get there. Make the quarterback hesitate a little bit. And I think we will have a little bit more success. I do think getting Byron Jones back is going to help a lot, especially if we continue running this aggressive style, which I think we've definitely dialed back on a lot, and especially in this game. I don't even think we've really lined up in Ebo look that often. So I think at the end of the day, the front seven is really good. I think the defense is underrated. I do think if we get Kader, X, and Byron healthy, that's a really nice duo there. I liked what I've seen from McKinley when he's come in as safety, and Javon Holland is a great player. So, and Eric Go's a veteran. He's not as good as he used to be, but he's still he's a decent enough player. So the defense can be great. I just feel like we need to fix some things schematic, just tweak it a little bit, and I would like to see, obviously like to see Byron back. So, yeah, defense, I just feel like is kind of getting dragged through the mud a little bit when it doesn't really deserve it. Especially, this is one of the best running teams in the National Football League, and they couldn't run the football. And they have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and they couldn't run the football. So I think it's very impressive. And even if you look at this game, they had 112 rushing yards and 185 passing yards. That's pretty bad. That's really bad. So, and again, this is a talented offense. So that just gave the Bengals like 30 points, and they couldn't stop their ground game. And a lot of people praise that defense. So I think the defense is a lot better than people give it credit for. A lot more talented, for sure. I think those are the two biggest issues right now, and they need to get them fixed. We need to mix up coverages more, and I think if we could just get another outside corner to feel good about, we could even go back to some of the more aggressive stuff, but it just helps out everybody in the secondary too. And it doesn't really make sense to get aggressive on 3rd and longs like that, especially with the great front seven. All right, let's get into the fan Q&A. This first question comes from SM. He says, will the Emmanuel Ogba injury hurt us down the stretch? It sucks, and I don't want to sound like, because I love Emmanuel. He's a great player, but he's a great Swiss Army knife defensive player, and he's a great two-way player. But I think the Dolphins are lucky that they have so much depth on the defensive side of the ball, especially at that position. This next question comes from Jared. He says, do you really see weaknesses in this team besides, obviously, the kicking struggles? Now, that's an interesting... I've completely forgot about that. And I'm glad you bring that up, Jared, because that has been an issue. Special teams has been a big problem. Whether it's honestly, punt coverage hasn't been bad, but kickoff coverage has been pretty abysmal. And then what was I about to say? Oh, punt returning has been terrible. That's something in the draft that we're definitely going to have to look into, is get someone who's good at returning punts. It would have been nice to get someone at the trade deadline like that. But that's been an issue. Special teams, kick returns and punt, especially on punts, have been awful. And obviously Jason has struggled. And I don't know what's going on with him. I really don't. Because we were kicking it home, for God's sakes, and he's missing. I think he missed 2 extra points. And he's missed a lot of key field goals this year. I don't. And again, this is a kicker we've invested money in, and he needs to play better. This next question comes from SM. He says, if you could only pick one, if you could only pick one MVP, Tua or McDaniels? That's a tough one. I would go with Tua on that one. I think we've seen what the team looks like without him, and that's not Mike's fault. But I think he's the most valuable Dolphin right now. This next question comes from Mike. He says, may I please hear the chair voice of Dolphins football once again? Please, sir, do not deprive me again of your weekly podcast antics. I appreciate that, Mike. Very kind words. This next question comes from Alpha. He says, same question from last week, no audio. Was there no audio on last week's podcast? I think there was, but maybe I'm wrong. He says, what do you think is going on with Byron Jones? I don't think it's an injury. Thoughts? It is an injury. He's had this Achilles injury. He played with it all year last year. I believe it is, to answer your question, Alpha. I believe it's an injury. I don't know why you wouldn't believe that. The team's on fire. He plays a position where he would not be contested for his job, especially with all the injuries. I don't know why it would be such a... If he had an issue with the team, I don't know. I just hope he comes back healthy. He's a great player. I hope to see him on the field soon. I really do. It's getting frustrating because he could out, like I said. I mean, we're talking about a Pro Bowl corner here. And a big part of this defense. So hopefully we get him back. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. What a season it's been. It's been fantastic. I hope you guys enjoy your Thanksgiving. And yeah, it's been a fantastic season. Blessed. Dolphins fans deserve it. They've been waiting a long time for this, and it just is great. So that's it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.